Dream journal. That's a cool one. I don't think I've heard of a dream journal before.
A dream journal. Oh well, take a seat. Take a seat. So one of the big things in psychodynamic psychology is examining one's dreams. And what they encourage you to do is keep a nice log of your dreams so you can interpret the symbolism, and that will give you the keys to your psyche. Don't know if I believe that or not, but yeah, it's very, very Jungian, very Freudian.
I guess there's probably an element of that subconscious mind where people lean on with that is that kind of lower level state is coming through in your dreams. So I can maybe see that. I've never done it that way. My journaling's more been where I've found a lot of use for it is reflecting on the end of the day. How something's maybe gone, or just kind of reflecting on certain elements. And I actually found that what I used to do is get into bed and almost do that own element of reflecting myself, and that would just keep me going for like a few hours or something. Sometimes before I'd fall asleep. So instead of noting my dreams, I kind of did the opposite way. I'd just do it before I went to bed. I started writing my thoughts down before I went to bed, and it was quite useful in that sense because you almost get it out your head. It's gone, it's out your head, and it's on a bit of paper. And I used it middle of night. If I woke up, jot it down on a bit of paper, and then you can just fall back asleep again. But that was physical writing in that sense. It was helpful to do that.
I tend to think of that sort of process as a bit like doing working out for maths. So effectively, in many ways, as a human being, you only have so many cognitive resources to attend to the problem. So when you're doing maths in your head, it's a bit more of a strain, and you're trying to work out, you're trying to hold numbers in your mind, like, okay, if I carry the one, if I carry the two. As soon as you bring a piece of paper into that sort of equation, it becomes easier because what you're effectively doing is you're outsourcing your working out to the paper, and it eases that strain on your cognitive resources. So it's easier to collate your thinking and your thoughts via a journal, via writing. And it basically puts less demand on you. And I think that's a big thing because you get hooked up on one point that you forget to elaborate on the other things. And that's why I think journaling is really, really useful, generally
100%.
speaking.
You imagine the amount of times where you've probably sat in bed and this one reoccurring thought's just chewing through. Maybe just getting into bed and the same thought happens, but actually, if you're getting it down on paper or writing it on your phone or something, it can take, you can almost put it on a shelf. I kind of used to use the analogy of if I just put this problem on a shelf, I don't need to deal with it now, but I've logged it. And what I found really interesting from doing something like that, half the things never came back. I never had to tend to them because I'd almost written them down. I always thought as, that's something I need to do, or like it became like a list of activities that I needed to work through because it would just kept coming up in my brain. But actually, half the time when I'd written something down, that was it. It had gone. I never had to come back to it. And it's almost, you almost think of it as an analogy like problem shared, problem halved kind of situation.
Almost kind of the physicalizing of the actual problem. I've put it in the book. That's where the problem sits and stays. It's very symbolic.
Yes, symbolic is a good way of summarising it, definitely.
And I think it sounds like what you do there is you do a very free form version of journaling. And actually, what I find quite interesting about journals in general, and I'm solely talking about writing at the moment, but there are a number of ways that you can start to capture your thoughts. And one of the big ones in CBT are thought diaries. So you write about what happened, what was the trigger, what were you feeling, how did you feel, give that feeling a rating out of 10. After the event happened or your prediction happened or whatever it is took place, how did you feel? Was it as bad as what you thought it was? Give it a rating out of 10. And also kind of rating likelihoods and things like that as to how likely you think your anxious thoughts are to come true. And those can be very, very helpful purely from a behavioral experimentation point of view. So you're almost logging, you've got this anxious thought, you've got this anxious prediction, and you're saying to yourself, this is going to come true. It feels like it's going to come true. Then the moment passes and you look back on it and you go, well, it didn't come true. But I really believed that thing at the time. And it gives you that distance from the thinking. Because effectively what you've done is you've created a hypothesis, you've tested it, and it either came true or it didn't come true.
So you're almost bringing yourself out that loop and trying to kind of observe from a distance in that way. Yeah, that's quite a powerful tool in that sense. And there's certain, you've kind of given a bit of a framework there of framing it. Are there other frameworks that sit around that you've used?
Oh, dude, I mean, how long's a piece of string? There's so many different ways of doing that. It kind of becomes difficult to keep track. And I suppose my style of journaling, I don't use a CBT thought diary, and I don't use a dream journal. I know, practice what you preach, right? I don't do that. I use an almost writer-esque style in the sense of I'll comment on my environment. And I use it more as a mindful tool. And I sort of noted that in the last episode. I rarely actually write about myself. I write about what I've observed and what was being in that moment. And then I use that to infer about how I was thinking and feeling at a later date when I go and review it. So I don't often use a structured format for a diary. It's very free flow.
Well, I think that's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm very similar in that way, and I've also tried a more of a structured approach. We tried it for a little bit. We did a little couple of weeks of noticing what went well in the day, what didn't go so well for us, and like maybe something that could have gone different, and those kind of 3 questions. And I don't know about you, but I found that harder sometimes of answering those specific questions than just taking some time to reflect on my thoughts from my style of journaling.
Yeah, I mean, it asks for a more concise answer almost. And I think there were just some days nothing happened. And I'm like, I don't know what to put. Nothing has gone on. Literally, there's been no strong feeling whatsoever. And it sort of evolved for me. It went from doing that 3 questions to also logging my feelings as well on the iPhone app. So it was doing almost Likert scales with the journal. And that was quite strange because then I could be like, okay, I felt really neutral on that day. I didn't have a strong feeling. However, I'm logging that these things sucked at the time. What's that about? What's going on there? So for me, in some regards, when I was doing that structured exercise, in addition with the feelings work, I actually started to notice there was a disconnect at times. And I think it's so easy to basically write how you're feeling right in that moment and then rate how you're feeling in that moment and forget what you actually experienced in the day. And I think it's a really powerful lesson because you go, well, in this moment, this feeling feels so overwhelming or it feels important, whatever the extreme version of it is.
Yeah.
And then you get home and your mood changes and you're like, well, what's going on here? And I think it's really powerful at capturing that.
Definitely. That element of reflective on it. I can think of many times of that where I thought I've actually had like a really badly stressful day because of a particular situation. And actually you can carry that feeling and thought. And actually, when you spend a bit of, 5-10 minutes reflecting at the end of the day of how the day's gone and looking at your observations from it, there is that complete discorrelation between the two, isn't there? Sometimes there is correlation, but I've often found that the journaling at the end of the day has helped me reframe a number of situations, particularly if it's been a tough situation. It's like, okay, I felt angry in the moment, maybe. As naming is kind of a feeling with it, but actually now that I've taken some time to sit with it, reflect on it, and then I'm journaling about it, you realise that actually maybe I was frustrated because I was wrong, and actually it wasn't angry because of the other person, and so that to me is another way I've used journaling, is that I've managed to get out of my own head and kind of not correct behaviours and stuff, but observe my own feelings, behaviours, and note maybe where situations haven't played out exactly how I thought they had in my head.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about there is you start to notice the absolutism of your thoughts and how there's a dissonance between that almost like 100% believing what's going on there, comparable to that moment. And what I found from that little project that we were doing, or that little experiment of the journaling style we were using, was I'd find myself going, was that a bad day or a bad 5 minutes that I'm using to colour the rest of my day? And to me, it highlights the natural biases for me, but I think a lot of people will find that they'll fall into those biases naturally as well, because that's sometimes how we think, and we go, actually, I'm using that to shade everything else. And when I really review it, I've had a pretty good day. It was just that hour, that Monday morning, whatever was happening, really ticked me off. So, yeah.
But that can easily happen, right? I think for the listeners, we can all say that a singular event, particularly a Monday morning for a lot of people, has set that precedence for the rest of the day. And actually, that's where I think a tool like journaling can bring you back a little step, because you go, actually, was that the overriding feeling or was it not?
I think this is where we need to get a bit more nuanced, because it's not actually the journaling itself. It's how you ask yourself questions in that moment, how you interrogate yourself, and how you engage with your observations. Because you never know. There are some people who aren't reflective, who might just write in their journal, and you might be one of these people, listeners. I know I am, where you write in your journal, I was 100% right in this one event, and everyone else was wrong. And you might use that to reinforce unhelpful thinking. So I suppose it's not just the journaling per se, and that's why we started the structure, because it helps you get insight, because it's making you ask questions you wouldn't think to ask yourself. And I think that's the powerful part of maybe doing a journal. And once you get into the habit of doing that, it's a really powerful tool. But if you're just running into it being like, dear diary, this person sucks, just off the bat, not considering what you do or your relationship with them, you're going to run into trouble, potentially.
Sounds like your diary's going to be like an agony aunt by the end of it. It's
100%. It's a big book of grudges. That's what we call it, the grudge book.
I mean, hey, if you want to write it in there, shut it and put it away, and that helps you get rid of grudges, maybe that's for you.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. As long as it doesn't help you hold on to them, and you're not sitting there carrying it around like, oh, Gladys from 2001, I'll get you. Yeah, books getting big. And I suppose let's use this to segue. We're biased. We love mindfulness. We love the journaling. Let's talk about the crap moments of it. Do you have any critiques about journalism? Journaling?
Yeah, I started to try and journal on my phone originally, and I hated it because I was always on my phone anyway, and I didn't have like when it was like, oh, just note your thoughts and observations and comment it down. I actually felt like it was almost too easy on the phone, because our thumbs are nowadays, we're so in time with our phones that you're just almost like, gone, And so actually, it almost became like an exercise where I wasn't mindful and I was almost in like an autopilot state. So that didn't work for me. Some of the prompts didn't work for me to start with either. I really didn't find like a structured journaling particularly helpful. And so, what I started with, I brought myself back to how I've done and handled some of the habits that I've done, which is, if I was trying to run, just put on the shoes, don't necessarily go for the run. So I said to myself, my only objective every single day is to write one sentence. That's it. And what I found by A, bringing out the paper, but then B, just having the objective of writing, was that I often wrote a lot more. Whereas if I started with, I need to, 15 minutes for bedtime, allow exactly 15 minutes, 5 minutes on each thought, write down 3 thoughts. And there are some very structured ways of journaling out there, and they didn't work for me. I think that's probably, it's worked now the way I do it because of the other tools that we have in our toolkit that I can bring in, I was able to deploy those other tools to help me work through it, such as some of that mindfulness practice or trying to match emotions with fact, etc. That worked for me in that sense.
It comes back to that insight component, doesn't it? You've got to have a level of insight to use that. And I suppose to touch on a little something you're noting there about using the phone, journaling as a critique, it's very format dependent.
Yeah.
If you're using the phone, that can be a barrier. If you're not very good at writing, that can be a barrier. If you have to find the format to keep a journal that's right for you. Some people just draw. I used to know a kid in school who would draw. I've worked with people who would keep a dictaphone like they were in the 90s. Like, note to self, get coffee on the way home or something like that. And I think we have a very prescriptive view of what journaling has to be or what it should be. And I think it comes back to finding your individual style, and also something that you feel comfortable with doing. And when I was journaling, I often had the thought, when I was using the feelings diary on the phone, I often was like, I wonder if Apple's getting updates of what to do with this. Very paranoid thought, but at the same time, I'm like, this is the age of information. Nothing's necessarily private. So where are you recording it? What are you recording it to? And who has access to that is something I think to also bear in mind, particularly if you're using the phone.
Definitely. That personal point, I think, is quite key, though, because I find journaling quite personal. We talk very openly, and I think people can relate to their close friends and people they share things with. But the other element I found with journaling, and I've slightly touched on it earlier, but that problem shared, problem half point of view is that it was a really personal point, because it was like, actually, I can be honest here. This is a safe space for me to be able to write maybe some uncomfortable thoughts out that actually, if they were just sitting running around in my head, I couldn't quite portray them a certain way. And I think we've said it a lot in this, but I think to summarise it is that journaling doesn't have to be a strict way of, prompting or on paper. It's what we're suggesting is that actually you find your own way through and look out for the catches, like, as you say, some of the self-reinforcing, but trying to find a way to journal that works better for you as an individual. There isn't like a one-size-fits-all. Like, you're talking about your way. That's actually an interesting point. You were saying that you do more of like a story style now of observing what you see around you instead of the personal side. Did you start there, or did you kind of get yourself to that because other ways didn't work?
No, I don't think other ways didn't work. I think it was more about finding something that I liked more. And it was almost that level of observation was interesting to me, because effectively it becomes about the process. Actually, what are you experiencing when events are going on? Why have you paid attention to that specific detail? So it might be someone crossing the street in an angry way. Why are you attending to that feature of your environment more than other pieces? And so it became a tool to, I suppose, explore questions like that I liked more than, say, what's been rubbish today. And I think for me, it was not only a creative outlet, but it was also an idea to get at potentially parts of my thoughts or psyche in a way that other journaling didn't necessarily do. Like, it did, but not as an impactful way. And I think sometimes when you're asking yourself hard questions, if you ask yourself something really distressing, your mind might immediately shut it down. And so what this way of journaling allows me to do is almost tiptoe around sort of maybe distressing thoughts, but also tiptoe around really, really exciting thoughts, because you can almost get carried away with your exciting thoughts. And I think and again, it comes back to that insight piece. You've got to be willing to reflect on those, ask those questions of yourself, and find the way to do that. So that's why I kind of fell into the almost, it's not storytelling, but it's almost, I suppose, observational work rather than a traditional day one, 1990, whatever.
I actually still write the date, interestingly. I used to keep a log of how many days I'm successfully doing the journaling, but I've given up on that because I just kept beating myself up. It was like, God damn it, missed another day. This is day 0, start again. So that was just
diary. I ruined my streak today. I'm a naughty boy.
It's like Duolingo when you just fail, It's like, your streak's over.
Start the unit again. Streak 0, you're a failure, and you end up writing that in your diary, and it's just a bad day.
Literally, just awful. But I still write the dates because I don't religiously go back through everything, but sometimes if something has come up, I'm like, oh, when did that happen? I kind of use it sometimes as a reference guide. Where it's like, oh, okay, I have this, feeling maybe that's come up where I was like, oh, that was a really bad day, or that was a really good day. And then it's kind of like, well, what was there anything particular that happened there? And I think that's something that I can't say I religiously on the first of every month, go back through it. But I will periodically go back through some of the elements and see what's picking up. And I used a slightly different style of journaling when I moved into leadership, which was actually starting to note down traits of things I did and didn't like. So instead of taking it into a personal journal, I put it into more of a situational journal of, okay, what does a good leader look like? Because I remember writing that down and I was like, well, that's not you can't really just write that in one sentence necessarily. And
so
what it built up to?
Exploration.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, I was just going to add, it became an exploration of ideals, almost.
Exactly. And it almost went further than that. It became a bit of a log of managers I didn't like and managers I did like.
Sounds like it became a Grudge book.
But it was because I had to make some of it personal because that became more vivid. So it was a very personal book, but it was like that individual portrayed this trait and I didn't feel that worked because of this.
Yeah. if you're listening to this and you think, "Am I that individual?" You are. I've seen the Grudge book. Paul, if you're listening, this is about you.
Oh, I did have a manager called Paul.
Oh, did you actually? Oh no.
Cut. No. It's fine. I'm sure there's people, if they did the same about me, right? They would be traits that they didn't like, and I think that's what I wanted to bring is that element of journaling. If I thought about it and my gut said it, a journal is about me, but actually you can use it from other things. You know, you can use it for leadership. You could use it in that sense where you're like, well, actually, what is, and you can do it in any career. If someone's a chef, well, what was the favourite dish, or what did I do differently that day that made that dish better? You can log it, and I think, we've talked about habit logs and other things, but I think journaling doesn't have to be a singular tool for you and your emotions.
No, of course not. And I think when we approach some of these topics, particularly, and I think this is a valuable critique, is that the idea is that it's so open. It's as useful as you are creative. So if you can find a new way to journal, go crazy. But a lot of people might struggle with that initial entry because it is so expansive. You're thinking, where do I even start? And so that's why we might recommend those prescriptive models, like the 3 questions one. That's a great place to start. But if you're looking to kind of run with it a bit more and expand, then it doesn't have to be where it stops. And I think that's something to consider when we're thinking about journaling, and there's so many ways to do it that can almost be overwhelming. And that's a fair critique, I think. Your thoughts and writing those down, if you're not used to it, it's going to almost, I say blow your mind. Not necessarily, but it's going to be tricky to get it started. Yeah. Hope you've got insurance. Hope it covers blown minds.
That's so true, though. That is so true, right? Because, and I think we relay this message in a lot of the tools and techniques that we give people in their toolboxes, is that you've got these 2 extremities of overthinking and doing nothing, but also that kind of overwhelm of, well, okay, which way do I journal? So maybe we can unpack that a bit more specifically. We've talked about it here as a whole of things that we've worked, but I think the 2 main ways, and common if you can think of others, but to me the 2 main ways that you can start to journal is your phone you're going to have anyway. So if that works for you, maybe just start with that, or paper. My preference is paper. I think yours is probably the same.
Oh, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, probably I'd say paper. I've got a little journal book that I carry around. If I go on holiday or if I go anywhere, I've got my little journal book.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Right. So that, and then it's like, well, okay, well, what do I write about, right? And I think that will come down to experimentation. We've talked a little bit here about the things that we've experimented with and haven't. We've both got different styles, haven't we, of journaling, even though we're talking about the same activity. And so I think for the listeners or people thinking, well, how do I start with this? We'll give you a few here, but you can look up your own. But I think just start with those initial thoughts, maybe like you were, thoughts or senses, how you're feeling, seeing, hearing. That's one thing you can do.
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry, I was just agreeing. I was just saying, yeah.
The way you said yeah, I was expecting it to be like, yeah. What colour?
No. It was just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Crack on.
Bloody good job, old boy.
Fantastic. By Jove, keep going.
So yeah, one of those ways could just be by making those observations or just starting that sentence. If that isn't working, maybe there are some prompts that you want to use. We've used those, what's gone well and what's not gone so well, etc. From theirs. There's many books out there, right? There's loads of people, and I think it comes down to finding what works for you.
Sorry, that's a quote right there. There's many books out there. Many books.
Many.
Just end the sentence. Many books. No, you are right. There are many books. And I think one of the earliest sort of journals you can use, if you're looking to really capture your thoughts and experiences in perhaps a really, really structured ways, I'd say a CBT thought diary. So you can literally just pop that into Google Images and it will come up. Examples will come up and you can copy those across. Some people create spreadsheets, which is wild to me because I hate a spreadsheet. But if you're that committed, create the spreadsheet. Yeah, that's serious. That's business thoughts. That's not everyday reflections. That is some serious business thinking.
But if that works for someone. We're critiquing it there, but if that works for you,
It's true.
go for it.
Go forth and have those business thoughts. I agree. I'm not judging, not shaming. It's just competitive thinking at this point.
Competitive thinking.
You're playing ranked, we're playing casual.
Oh dear.
Oh no, my chair's broken. Oh, no.
Essentially,
It's the weight of these jokes, listeners. It's the weight of these jokes.
that'd be the perfect way to end an episode. Oh no, my chair's broken.
Yeah. Right, shall we give journaling a solid rank? What are we gonna say?
I gotta refresh myself on. Did we labelled it ABC? Didn't we? Did we? I can't.
Yeah,
remember
with ABC, and then we created the special rank, which is S. It's the perfect well-being. It's fast acting. It works. You can do it all the time. Nothing can beat it. I would say Satori Sounds as a podcast is probably S rank, but that's unrelated.
Yeah, that's me.
To what was on my head.
That's an unbiased opinion.
So yeah, it's completely neutral, bipartisan.
You know what? I'm actually teetering on the S, and I'll talk my rationale out loud.
You're teetering on the S.
I'm teetering on the S before I make a final deduction, and that may bring it back down because for it to be an S, it's got to tick all the boxes.
S is perfect. S is sort of untouchable level of well-being.
The reason it is because I think it can pull in a lot of other tools. By forcing yourself to sit down and physically stop and journal, you can then use that as a baseline to deploy other tools, such as mindfulness, or if there's specific models that you want to bring in. So that's why I'm teetering on it. But there are imperfections with it, and therefore I don't think I can fully go to the point of it being an S. So it is going to
Such a strong ranking.
It's such a strong ranking, and therefore it's got to sit at like the very top. So if we're comparing it for mindfulness on its own, I would actually probably put journaling above mindfulness. It would go above it on the call.
Really,
from my perspective.
Interesting. So you're going A plus. It sounds like because
yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong. You could be like, this is perfect. Interesting. Strong score. Strong score.
How about yourself?
Me personally, I think when I think about it, because it relies on other things and it relies on a sense of insight to be in many ways practical to some degree. I don't know. You might find the just kind of ranting for an hour really helpful.
I love that.
I know. I've seen the Grudge book. I've seen what it's on your desk in this video. I can see it.
We're on volume 5 just this year.
It's all just Paul. There's no one else's name in there. It's just Paul. I hope you're listening. No, I'm joking.
He's not.
Yeah, I'm not. No, but because of that, it relies on that element of, I suppose, thinking and exploratory thought. I'm going to give it a B plus. Not because I don't like it, because I'm thinking for the entry level person who's not done this, who's never thought to write their thoughts down or anything like that. It's just coming to them. It's strong, but it takes practice. And when I think of S, I think anyone could just walk into it. Don't have to be skilled or used to doing it like that. I feel like S is almost unattainable.
I was going to say that. Is there anything we think that maybe I haven't found it yet. Let's put it this way. But do we think there's anything that anyone can walk into and just?
That's the point of this podcast series, because we're looking for the S. It's our adventure. That's what we're called Satori Sounds, the double S.
Love that. No.